The rain was not simply water falling from the sky in Asturias. It was a dense gray and oppressive curtain that separated the world of the living from the world of the dead. Or at least that's what Sophia thought, as the taxi wheels consumed the wet asphalt of the secondary road leading to the peninsula. Outside, the Atlantic Ocean pounded furiously against the black stone cliffs, a rhythmic and eternal sound that seemed to tell a story of ancient violence, of sunken ships, and secrets swallowed by the waves. Sophia looked out the steamed window, trying to see something through the fog, but there were only shadows. Shadows of twisted trees beaten by the wind, shadows of hills that seemed like sleeping giants, and finally, the imposing shadow of what would be her home for the next 12 months, the Blackwood Mansion. It didn't look like a house. It looked like a sleeping beast, built of dark stone and slate roofs, with pointed towers piercing the low sky like fingers demanding attention. The front door, a massive structure of dark oak with rusty iron fittings, opened with a guttural screech that resonated in Sophia's bones before she even stepped out of the taxi. The driver, an older man with a face tanned by the sun and the sea, didn't stop to help her with her luggage. He simply opened the trunk, dropped Sophia's 2 worn leather suitcases onto the muddy ground, and got back into his vehicle without saying a word, as if spending too much time near that place was contagious. Sophia stood alone in the rain, with the cold piercing her synthetic wool coat, looking up at the facade of the house that watched her with hundreds of empty windows, like blind eyes on a stone face. Sophia was not an architect, nor an art historian, nor a lost heiress seeking her fortune. She was an archivist, a woman of 30 who had spent the last decade in the dusty basements of public libraries and ministries, cataloging letters, classifying minutes, and breathing the sweet and rotten smell of old paper. Her life was an exercise in silence and invisibility, exactly what the Blackwood family seemed to desperately need. The ad in the newspaper had been vague, almost suspicious in its simplicity. Resident archivists sought to organize and catalog the private library of Blackwood Mansion. Room and board included. Requirement: absolute discretion, generous salary. The salary, in fact, was 3 times what Sophia earned in Madrid, enough to pay her mother's debts and perhaps, just perhaps, save for a future that didn't smell like mold. Discretion, however, was a currency she didn't know if she possessed. Discretion meant not asking questions, and Sophia had the bad habit of wanting to know the why of things, of wanting to connect the loose dots in stories that others preferred to leave incomplete. She pushed her suitcases toward the threshold, and just before her hand touched the dark wood, it opened wide from the inside, revealing a foyer so large that a car could have fit inside without hitting the walls. The air coming out of the house wasn't cold, as it should have been on a rainy October night. It was stagnant, warm, and laden with a complex and disturbing scent. Burnt wax, wilted flowers, old wood, and very subtly copper. The metallic smell of blood. The woman standing in the center of the foyer was tall, thin to the point of appearing fragile, dressed entirely in black, with a pearl necklace that shone against the paleness of her skin like exposed bones. "You must be Sophia," the woman said. Her voice was not unpleasant, but neither was it warm. It was neutral, like the voice of an automated recording or a judge reading a verdict. "I am Victoria Blackwood." She introduced herself without offering her hand. "My husband, Ramon, cannot receive you right now. He is resting." Sophia nodded, feeling the weight of the word resting in the air between them. Resting as in sleeping, or resting as in lying in a box? She didn't ask. "Understood," she said. "I am here to work. Just tell me where the library is." Victoria Blackwood looked at her for a long moment, mentally dismantling her with the efficiency of someone who has spent a lifetime judging people by their appearance and lineage. Sophia knew she didn't pass the test. Her coat was cheap, her boots were muddy, and her brown hair was messy from the humidity. But she didn't seem to matter. The only thing that mattered was that she was there, inside the house, fulfilling a necessary function. "The library is in the West Wing," said Victoria, pointing to a marble staircase that ascended into the darkness of the 2nd floor. "It's the double oak door at the end of the hall. The rules are simple. Do not enter locked rooms. Do not leave the house after 6 in the evening without permission. And most importantly," she paused, and her gray eyes fixed on Sophia's with an intensity that made her take a step back. If you hear something at night, do not look for the source. There is a lot of wind on this peninsula, and sometimes the wind sounds like voices. Ignore it. And with that, Victoria turned with a fluid motion of black silk and disappeared down a side hallway, leaving Sophia alone in the immense foyer with her suitcases and a silence that seemed to vibrate. Climbing the stairs was a physical effort. The wood creaked under her feet, emitting small groans that echoed in the emptiness of the hall like complaints. The second-floor hallway seemed endless, lit by wall sconces that cast dancing shadows that stretched and shrank like fingers trying to grab the ankles of anyone passing. Finally, she reached the end of the hall. The double oak doors were ajar, inviting her in, or perhaps warning that there was no turning back. Sophia pushed the doors and stood speechless. The library was not a room. It was a labyrinth. Walls reaching the 3-meter-high ceiling, filled to the brim with books bound in leather of every color. Crimson, navy blue, forest green, chocolate brown. There were rolling ladders, dark walnut reading tables, antique globes, and in the center of the room, a massive walnut desk that looked like the throne of a forgotten king. The smell here was overwhelming, a sensory blow of paper, leather, and dry ink, the smell of 1,000 dead stories waiting to be resurrected. But there was something else. Under the bookcases, against the wall, there was a row of cardboard boxes sealed with brown packing tape, dozens of them, stacked haphazardly. That must be her job. That must be the chaos she had been hired to order. She left her suitcases in a corner, took off her wet coat, and approached the first box. It had no label. She took a cutter from her pocket and cut the tape. Inside, there were no books. There were papers. Letters, invoices, yellowed newspaper clippings, black and white photographs with jagged edges. Sophia took out the first photograph. It showed a young man standing on the same pier at the port that she had passed today in the taxi. He was wearing a white linen suit from the 50s, an easy smile, and a cigarette in his hand. Behind him, on the edge of the photo, part of the house was visible, but different, newer, with windows open and flower curtains hanging in the wind. On the back of the photo, written with a fountain pen with fading blue ink, there was a phrase, "To E, the day we decided the world wasn't enough. R." Sophia felt a shiver run down her spine. The handwriting was elegant, hurried, the handwriting of someone educated and passionate. Who was E? Who was R? Ramon Blackwood, the sick patriarch downstairs. She took out another paper. It was a letter, folded 3 times. The paper was fragile, brittle. "My dear Isabel," it began. "I cannot return to the house. You know what is in the basement. You know what he did with the child. If I return, I will be next." The letter was not signed, but the date in the upper right corner said, October 14th, 1964. 60 years ago. Sophia slowly lowered the letter. The child. The basement. Returning. Words that clashed with the image of a wealthy and respectable family living in a mansion by the sea. But Sophia's instinct, the same instinct that told her to take this job despite the initial fear, screamed that there was something rotten beneath the polished surface of the Blackwoods, something that couldn't be seen from the outside, but that emanated from these boxes of paper like toxic gas. The hours passed without Sophia realizing it. The afternoon light faded, replaced by the darkness of the night and the pale glow of the moon trying to penetrate the high windows. She didn't turn on the main lights. She preferred the light of a small desk lamp that created a circle of intimacy and safety around her. She was immersed in a medical file, one of those found in the third box. It said, confidential, private. The patient's name had been scratched out with a thick black marker, leaving only the surname legible, Blackwood. The diagnosis, however, was clear. Severe antisocial personality disorder with psychopathic tendencies. The subject shows a total lack of empathy and a morbid fascination with the pain of others. Recommendation: immediate committal to a high-security institution. The date of the report was 1975. Sophia tried to piece things together. The child in the letter from 1964, the patient in 1975. Who was he? Ramon Blackwood, the sick old man downstairs, would be about 70 now. In 1975, he would have been a child or a teenager. Was he the monster described in the paper? Or was it someone else? A brother? A cousin who had been erased from family history like blacked-out lines in an official document? Suddenly, a sound made her freeze. It wasn't the wind. It wasn't the settling of the wood. It was a dry, metallic blow, like a door being slammed hard downstairs. Then another blow, and then a scream. The scream was muffled by distance and the thick stone walls. But there was something in it, a quality of pure and animal terror that froze the blood in her veins. Sophia got up from her chair, the medical report still in her hand. The words of Victoria Blackwood echoed in her mind. If you hear something at night, do not look for the source. There is a lot of wind, but this wasn't wind. The wind doesn't scream like a woman having her throat slit. Sophia knew she should stay in the library. She knew she should close the door, put a chair under the knob and wait for morning. But curiosity, that damn curiosity that had brought her to Asturias from Madrid, was stronger than fear. She turned off the desk lamp, plunging the library into a gray-blue dimness lit only by the moonlight. She approached the door and opened it a crack. The hallway downstairs was empty, but the air felt different. It vibrated, as if the house itself was holding its breath. She went down the stairs, avoiding the steps she knew squeaked, with her heart pounding against her ribs like a caged bird. In the downstairs foyer, everything was silent. The only sound was the tick-tock of the floor clock standing next to the front door, a rhythmic and normal sound that seemed insulting in the midst of the tension. But then she saw it. A small dark wooden door just under the main staircase. A door that hadn't been open when she arrived. The door was slightly ajar, and a faint, yellowish light, like candlelight, was coming out of it. And a smell. Not the smell of rain or wood. It was the smell of burnt sugar and something else. Something chemical. Sophia approached silently, holding her breath. She reached the threshold and looked inside. It was an old kitchen, with black and white checkered tiles and walls lined with hanging copper pots. In the center, on a large table, a candle was burning, and sitting in a chair facing the candle was an old woman. She had messy white hair and was wearing a floral dress that looked several decades out of fashion. She wasn't looking at the candle. She was looking at Sophia, and her eyes were completely black. There was no iris, no white, just two pools of darkness absorbing the flickering light. "You shouldn't have come," the woman said. Her voice sounded dry, like dead leaves trampled underfoot. "They don't like strangers seeing when they eat." Sophia wanted to step back, wanted to run up the stairs and lock herself in, but her feet were nailed to the floor. "Who are they?" she managed to ask in a whisper. The old woman smiled, and it was something horrific, a grimace revealing teeth that were too long and yellowish. "The children," she whispered. "The ones Ramon hid in the basement. The ones who are hungry." Sophia looked around frantically. The words of the old woman from the kitchen were haunting her. "The children Ramon hid in the basement. The ones who are hungry." "What?" asked Sophia. "The ones who have hunger." And just then, Sophia heard a sound behind her. It wasn't a scream this time. It was the sound of nails scratching wood. Long, sharp nails scratching the inside of the basement door, the door under the stairs. The old woman raised a bony hand and pointed toward the darkness behind Sophia. "Run," she said, and this time her voice wasn't a whisper. It was a scream. "Run before they open the door!" Sophia didn't wait to see more. She turned and ran toward the main staircase, taking 2 steps at a time. The sound of nails intensified, now accompanied by a low, guttural growl coming from the depths of the earth. Reaching the upper floor, she didn't stop in her room. She ran to the library, entered and slammed the double doors shut with a dry thud. She frantically looked for something to block them, but there was nothing. Just books, thousands of useless books. She leaned against the wood, breathing with difficulty, her heart about to explode. The noise from the basement seemed to have stayed downstairs, or perhaps the stone walls were so thick that the house absorbed the sound. She stayed there for an hour, maybe 2, listening to every sound, every movement of the house. Finally, exhaustion overcame her, and she slid to the floor, curling up against the double door like a frightened animal. She closed her eyes just for a second to rest. When she opened her eyes again, the morning light was entering through the high windows, bathing the library in a golden and peaceful glow. The birds were singing outside. The rain had stopped. Sophia stood up, her muscles sore and mind foggy. Had it been a dream? The nightmare provoked by the trip and the loneliness? She looked around. The boxes were still there. The lamp was off. But on the floor, right where she had fallen asleep, there was something. A small porcelain doll, dressed in red with one broken eye, and the other staring at the ceiling. Sophia bent down to pick it up. The doll was cold, ice cold, and on the back of its dress, embroidered with red thread, there was a name, Sophia. She stood motionless, holding the doll as if it were a bomb about to explode. Her name. How did they know her name? No one in the house had told her name, only Victoria, and only once. And this doll? This doll looked ancient, from decades ago, but the red thread of the embroidery was shiny, new. The fear she had felt the night before returned. But this time it wasn't a cold in the stomach. It was a certainty of iron. It wasn't a dream. The house was alive, and the house was watching her. She ate breakfast alone in a small service kitchen she found at the end of the West Wing hallway. There was bread, butter, and coffee. No one appeared. Neither Victoria, nor the sick husband, nor the old woman from the kitchen. Only the silence of the house and the distant ticking of clocks. Sophia ate mechanically, hardly tasting anything, with her mind spinning around the doll and the old woman's words. The children Ramon hid in the basement. The ones who have hunger. She decided to ignore it. She decided to do her job. It was her defense mechanism. When fear is too great, dive into work. She returned to the library. She opened the fourth box. This box seemed different. The cardboard was thicker, older. She opened it and found, not papers, but a large book bound in black leather, no title on the spine. She took it out. It was heavy. She placed the book on the table and opened it in the middle. The pages were blank. It was a diary, a blank diary, but not for long. Sophia noticed something strange about the paper. It wasn't normal paper. It had a texture, a crackle on the surface. She took a pencil, sharpened it, and gently ran the tip over the first blank page. Letters appeared. Bright gray letters written with pressure on the previous page. Someone had written on the previous page and torn it out, leaving a ghostly impression. Basic forensic technique, something she had learned in a document restoration course. Sophia began to gently draw with the pencil, revealing the letters one by one. Day 1, the child is born. He has the father's eyes. He cannot see the light. If he sees it, he will die. We must keep him in the dark, forever. Sophia felt the air leave her lungs. The child, the father's eyes, the darkness. She continued running the pencil on the next page. Day 45, he bit the nurse. He broke one of her legs. We don't need a nurse anymore. He grows fast. Too fast. Day 102, today he spoke. He didn't say mommy. He said meat. Sophia's hand was shaking so much the pencil slipped and fell to the floor with a dry click that echoed like a gunshot in the silent library. The diary wasn't just a birth record. It was a record of a monster, of something that wasn't human or had ceased to be, something the Blackwood family was raising in the basement, feeding it, hiding it from the world. And according to the diary date, that happened 40 years ago. Was it still there? The sound of nails scratching the door last night. Was it the child, now an adult? The library door swung open violently. Sophia spun around, heart in her throat. It was a man, young, maybe 30, with messy black hair, dressed in a wrinkled white shirt and dirty jeans. He didn't look like a Blackwood. He looked like a gardener or a field worker. His hands were dirty and he had a kitchen knife on his belt. "What are you doing?" he asked with a strong, rough local accent. Sophia breathed deeply, trying to regain her composure. "I'm the new archivist," she said, trying to keep her voice from trembling. "I'm organizing." The man entered the library without invitation, walking with a heaviness that made the floor vibrate. He approached the table and looked at the open book, the letters revealed with the pencil. He didn't seem surprised. He didn't seem scared. He seemed resigned. "That book," he said, "should have been burned a long time ago." "Who are you?" asked Sophia, realizing she was alone with an armed man in a locked room. The man looked her in the eye. His eyes were brown, dark, but held a deep ancient sadness, a fatigue of centuries. "My name is Matteo," he said. "I am the grandson of the gardener. My father looked after this place before me, and my grandfather before him. Do you know?" Shiver run down her spine. The old woman's words from the kitchen came back to haunt her. The ones who have hunger. "Why are you telling me this?" asked Sophia. "Because you have the same look she had," he said, looking at her with an intensity that made her uncomfortable. "The same look, the same dangerous curiosity. My grandfather told me about her, about E, the woman in the photo, the one who left 60 years ago leaving this diary. You have her nose. You have her way of holding her head." Sophia was confused. "That woman died long ago." The letter said so. "Do you think so?" Matteo challenged her with his gaze. "Do you think the Blackwoods let go of something that belongs to them? They don't let go of anything. Not money, not property, not people. And especially not blood." Matteo turned to leave, but stopped at the threshold. "Victoria will come tonight to get you for dinner. Don't eat anything she offers you, and don't drink the wine. It's rule number 1 for surviving in this house. Keep your mind clear, because when you sleep, that's when they can enter." And he left, leaving Sophia with more questions than answers, and the fear bubbling in her stomach like acid. The afternoon passed with torturous slowness. Sophia tried to keep working, but the words of the diary were seared into her mind. Meat. Father's eyes. Darkness. She decided to explore a little more. With caution, she left the library and walked the second-floor hallway. All the doors were closed, except one at the end of the hall, opposite the library. The door was slightly ajar. Sophia approached and pushed it gently. It was a bedroom. A little girl's bedroom. The wallpaper had an ancient rose pattern, now faded. There was an iron canopy bed, empty. On the wall, there were drawings hung, children's drawings made with crayons. But the drawings weren't normal. They were drawings of deformed figures, with many arms and many eyes, surrounding a small house. And all the drawings were signed with the same handwriting. R. Ramon. The little psychopath child from the medical report. The child who was now the sick old man downstairs. Sophia entered the room. The air was full of dust and abandonment. On a nightstand, there was a music box. Sophia opened it. A simple, sad melody began to play, a lullaby that sounded out of tune. And beneath the melody, Sophia heard another sound, a rhythmic, soft sound. Drip. Drip. It was coming from the built-in wardrobe in the wall. Sophia approached the wardrobe. Her hand trembled as she touched the cold wooden knob. She turned it slowly. The door opened. There were no clothes inside, just stairs. A narrow stone staircase descending into absolute darkness. The smell rising from that staircase wasn't dust. It was rot and dampness, and something sweet, rotten. Sophia slammed the wardrobe shut with a bang, her heart pounding against her ribs. There was direct access from the child's bedroom to the basement. A secret entrance. Ramon, the child, had free access to whatever was down there, and he had brought something upstairs. That night, dinner was a surreal event. The table was set in the main dining room, a huge room with medieval tapestries hanging on the walls, and a long table that looked like a battlefield of silver and porcelain. There were only 3 place settings. Victoria Blackwood was at the head. To her right, a man in a wheelchair. It must be Ramon Blackwood. He had wrinkled skin like a dried pear, sunken eyes, and his mouth slightly open, breathing with a high-pitched wheeze. He didn't seem to see anyone, neither Sophia nor Victoria. He just stared into the void. "Sit down, Sophia," Victoria said, indicating the chair on the left. "Ramon has his good days and his bad days. Today is a bad day." Sophia sat down. The service was silent, performed by a tall, thin man with dark skin and an expressionless face, who seemed to move without making a sound. They served soup. It was a thick, dark soup with an aroma Sophia couldn't identify. She remembered Matteo's warning. Don't eat anything. She took the spoon, brought it to her lips, but didn't drink. She waited for Victoria to taste first. Victoria ate with elegance, making no sound, looking at Sophia with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "How is the work in the library going?" asked Victoria. "Well," she lied. "There are many documents. Interesting. Yes, our family has a very rich history. Full of passions, tragic passions. Was there a child who disappeared?" Sophia blurted out, risking everything in a single question. Victoria's spoon stopped halfway to her mouth. There was absolute silence in the room. The only sound was Ramon's wheezing breath. "Why do you ask that?" said Victoria finally with an icy voice. "I found a letter," said Sophia. From a woman named E, who spoke of a child, who spoke of hiding him. Victoria placed the spoon on the plate with a dry, clear clink. E, repeated Victoria. Elahia. That meant her name. Elahia. She was my great-aunt. An unstable woman. A woman who imagined things. Things that didn't exist. And the child? The child never existed, said Victoria firmly. It was a fantasy. An invention of a sick mind. The family had to protect itself from her stories, from her lies. Sophia noticed Victoria's hand, resting on the table, squeezing the linen tablecloth until her knuckles turned white. She was lying. She knew she was lying. And she knew Sophia knew she was lying. The tension at the table was palpable, a static electricity that made the hair on Sophia's arms stand up. Suddenly Ramon Blackwood made a sound. It wasn't a moan. It was a laugh. A low, dry, evil laugh that started in his chest and rose to his throat. He He laughed for 10 seconds, 15 seconds, staring at Sophia with his empty eyes, as if he knew something she didn't. Then, the laugh turned into a fit of violent coughing. Victoria stood up immediately, all the elegance of the facade disappearing, replaced by urgency. Mrs. Gomez, she called. Bring the medicine! That's enough for tonight. Sophia, go to your room. Dinner is over. Sophia didn't think twice. She stood up and left the room, walking fast toward the stairs. But before going up, she looked back. Ramon was still laughing, though now silently, just moving in the wheelchair. And as he moved, his hand hit the armrest, a rhythmic beat. Tap, tap, tap. The same rhythm as the nails scratching the door the night before. The same rhythm of Sophia's heart. She ran up the stairs to the library, closed the door, and leaned against it. She couldn't stay there. She had to leave. She had to leave that very night. Mateo was right. No one lasted more than a few weeks, and she wasn't going to be the exception. She packed her things in 5 minutes. Her heart was beating so hard it hurt her chest. She took the diary book, the letters, the photo, evidence. She needed proof. She needed to take it all to the police, or the newspaper, to someone. She opened the library door and looked into the hallway. It was dark. The hallway lights had gone out. Only moonlight entered through the high windows, creating corridors of shadow on the floor. Sophia began to walk toward the main staircase. But something stopped her. A sound. It wasn't coming from the basement. It was coming from above, from the attic of the east wing, where no one ever went. A sound of heavy footsteps dragging something. Shh. Sophia looked up. The attic trapdoor was slightly ajar. A flickering light was coming out of the opening, and a hand, a long, pale, bony hand was hanging from the trapdoor, moving as if searching for something in the air. And that hand was holding something. A large, rusty and bloody pruning shears. Sophia held her breath. The hand slowly withdrew back into the darkness of the attic. And then a voice, a little girl's voice, sweet and sharp, singing. A lullaby. Sleep, sleep, little one. The boogeyman is coming and will eat you. The voice got closer to the trapdoor. Sophia saw a face appear. A pale face, eyeless, with its mouth sewn shut with black thread. It wasn't a ghost. It wasn't a nightmare. It was something real. Something that lived in the house. Something the Blackwood family had created, or attracted, or let in 60 years ago, and never left. Sophia ran. She ran toward the stairs, going down the steps 2 at a time, not caring about the noise she made. She reached the main foyer and ran toward the door. She pulled the handle. It was locked. It wasn't a normal lock. It was a heavy iron bolt that required a key. Sophia pounded on the door with her fists, screaming for help. But the house was isolated. The town was kilometers away. No one could hear her. She turned around, sharp, and then a dull thud. She opened her eyes. The creature was on the floor, immobile, with a gardener's knife stuck in its neck. And standing over it, breathing hard, was Mateo. "Run!" shouted Mateo, pulling the knife and staining himself with black blood.
"Run to the garden!"
"There is a door in the back wall, near the rose bushes. Go." Sophia didn't need to be told twice. She ran past Mateo, toward the glass door leading to the garden. She broke it with a chair, feeling the glass shatter against her skin, and ran out into the cold night rain. She ran through the muddy garden, slipping, falling, and getting up, her lungs burning. She reached the stone wall. She saw the iron door among the black roses, It was open. She crossed the threshold and ran toward the path, toward the road, toward safety. She didn't stop until she saw the lights of the town taxi that she had called from her mobile hidden in her pocket while running. She got into the taxi, soaked, trembling, with the diary book pressed against her chest. The driver looked at her, scared by her state. "What happened, miss? Are you okay?" Sophia turned and looked back toward the Blackwood mansion that rose in the darkness like a giant tomb. All the lights were on now. In every window, in every tower, there were silhouettes. Dozens of silhouettes watching her leave. And in the front window, in front of the door, was Victoria Blackwood. And beside her, in the wheelchair, was Ramon, raising a hand in a slow, defiant goodbye. Sophia breathed deeply. She turned to the driver. "Drive," she said. "Take me far from here. To the police station. Or the newspaper. Anywhere I can tell the truth." But the taxi didn't move. The engine died. Sophia looked at the driver. The driver was slowly turning toward her. And he was smiling. It wasn't a normal man's smile. It was a smile too wide, with too many teeth. And his eyes. His eyes were turning black. "I'm sorry, miss," said the driver, with the voice of the old woman from the kitchen. "No one is allowed to leave. Dinner is over, but dessert is served." Sophia tried to open the door, but it was locked. The car filled with the smell of burnt sugar and copper, and from the darkness of the back seat, a pale, bony hand touched her shoulder gently. "Welcome back, E," whispered a voice she knew, a voice she had heard in dreams and nightmares. "You were always our favorite." Sophia screamed, but the sound was muffled by the darkness that enveloped her, dragging her back to the house, back to the box, back to the eternal silence. The Blackwood mansion hadn't just taken her job. It had taken her life. Waking up was not a return to consciousness, but a painful ascent from a dark depth where neither time nor pain existed. Sophia opened her eyes, expecting to see the dusty ceiling of her room in the village, or perhaps the interior of a police cell with cold, clinical fluorescent light. What she saw was dark, hand-carved wood, velvet curtains that blocked the daylight with a violent obstinacy, and a ceiling painted with frescoes depicting fallen angels, their faces twisted into silent screams that seemed to watch her from the heights. The air in the room was heavy, sweet, with that underlying smell of wilted flowers and copper that she now recognized as the olfactory signature of the Blackwood house. She tried to move, but her limbs weighed as much as lead, not from physical restraints, but from a chemical inertia that prevented her from even lifting her hand from the feather mattress. The sound of a metal bolt turning came sharply to her ears, followed by the soft rustle of silk against wood. The door opened and Victoria Blackwood entered, carrying a silver tray with a steaming cup and a small blue crystal vial. She wasn't dressed in mourning as before, but in a day dress of cream color, impeccable, with a pearl necklace that looked like a necklace of small teeth on the pale woman's neck. "Welcome back, Elegia," Victoria said, her voice soft, almost affectionate, as if speaking to a child waking from a nightmare. "You have slept a lot. 2 days. The body needs to recover from the stress of the journey." Sophia tried to speak, but her throat was dry, scratchy. "Where?" she managed to ask finally, her voice sounding foreign, weak. "You are in the East Wing guest room. The room I saw in the dreams and in the old house plans. Elegia's room. The room of the woman from the letters. The room of E. Why do you call me Elegia?" Sophia managed to ask, her voice trembling. Victoria placed the tray on the nightstand and looked at Sophia with an intensity that was almost physical. "Because you are," she said simply, as if explaining that water is wet. "Look in the mirror if you don't believe me." Sophia turned her head with difficulty. There was a full-length mirror on the wardrobe door. The woman looking back had messy hair and a pale face, but the eyes were the same, and the shape of the nose, and the chin. She was identical to the woman in the photograph found in the box. The woman who was supposed to have fled 60 years ago. "It's impossible," she whispered. "That woman died or left. She didn't leave," Victoria corrected, approaching and pouring a golden liquid from the blue vial into the cup. She was absorbed. The house, the family, needed her essence, her strength. Ramon always said she had an iron will, a capacity to endure pain that was unique, a quality necessary for what we are building here. "What are you building?" Sophia felt a cold run down her spine, ignoring the heaviness of her limbs. "What are you building in the basement?" Monsters. Victoria smiled, a smile that didn't reach her gray eyes. Don't call monsters our hosts. They are simply an evolution. Ramon has been preparing this for 40 years. The child, the one you read about in the diary, was just the first attempt, a partial failure. He was hungry, yes, but he had no discipline. He didn't have the blood bond necessary to control the darkness. But you have family blood. You are Ramon's great niece, the last direct descendant of the line that matters. Sophia's world swayed. Great niece. That explained the resemblance, explained why Mateo said she had the same look. She had been brought here not by chance, not by an ad in a newspaper. She had been brought because she was the final ingredient in a macabre recipe. The marriage to the house, the blood bond that sealed the pact. What are you going to do with me? She asked, struggling to keep her voice steady. Victoria lifted the cup and brought it to Sophia's lips. The smell was sweet, like flowers and something chemical, like opiates. Drink, she ordered softly. You need to be strong for tonight's ceremony. It is the autumn equinox. The veil between worlds is thinner. Ramon has been waiting for this moment to return home, to leave that old broken body and occupy a new one. A young one, a strong one with Elegia's blood running through its veins. Sophia turned her head, refusing the cup. The hot liquid splashed onto the pillowcase. I'm not going to help you do that, she said, a spark of defiance igniting in her chest, overcoming the fear. I'm not going to be the vessel for that old psychopath. Victoria sighed, as if a small child had misbehaved at the table. You have no choice, Sophia. Do you think you can leave? Taxis don't stop here to take people to freedom. They stop to bring them back. And even if you could leave, where would you go? The family has influence. The police will search for you as a fugitive, a mentally unstable woman who attacked her benefactor. But there is more. Victoria leaned down, whispering directly into Sophia's ear. Mateo, do you remember the gardener? We have him, and if you cooperate, he lives. If not, we have many holes in the basement that need to be filled. The threat was direct and effective. Sophia closed her eyes, feeling tears of frustration hot behind her eyelids. She was trapped in a web of blood, black magic, and ancestral madness. I'll give you an hour, said Victoria, straightening up and regaining her composure of an ice marchioness. To drink, to wash, and to dress. There is a dress in the wardrobe. White, as befits a cult bride. At 8 o'clock, we will go down to the ballroom. Ramon wants to see you before the transfer. The door closed with a dry thud. Sophia was left alone, but this time the chemical weakness was beginning to fade. The fear, on the other hand, had turned into a cold, sharp adrenaline. She had an hour. She had to get out. She had to find Mateo. She got out of bed, her legs trembling but holding her. She went to the wardrobe. The white dress hung there, ghostly and beautiful, made of ancient silk. But under the dress hung a leather belt from a butler's uniform that someone had left forgotten. It was an improvised weapon, but better than her bare hands. She looked in the drawers. She found some blunt-ended scissors. Heavy, sharp. She hid them in the inside pocket of the dress when she finally put it on, feeling the cold fabric against her skin like a shroud. She looked out the